Perseverance will lead to success. Allie had poured every last ounce of her soul into the competition, a culmination of years of relentless effort and sacrifice. She had envisioned this moment 1,000 times, the sweet taste of victory, the validation of her hard work. But the reality was a bitter, crushing blow. The results were announced, and her name was not among the winners. It felt as though the world had tilted on its axis, the ground crumbling beneath her feet. Failure wasn't just a word. It was a physical weight pressing down on her chest, suffocating the last embers of hope. The dream she had nurtured for so long now seemed like a cruel joke, a distant, unattainable star. Despair washed over her in a cold wave, and in that moment, she felt nothing but the overwhelming urge to give up, to let the dream die and fade into the grayness of her disappointment. The path she had walked with such determination now felt like a dead end, a monument to her inadequacy. Every voice of doubt she had ever ignored was now screaming in her mind, and she felt completely, utterly defeated. Seeking solace from the storm raging within her, Ailey found herself drawn to a quiet, forgotten corner of the park. She walked aimlessly, her feet heavy, until she reached the riverbank where a magnificent old tree stood, its sprawling branches offering a silent, leafy sanctuary. She sank onto the cool grass beneath its shade, the gentle rustle of leaves a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. As she sat there, lost in her sorrow, she noticed she wasn't alone. A short distance away sat an elderly man, his back resting against the sturdy trunk of the tree, a other-kind, weathered face etched with the lines of a long and storied life. In his hands, he held an old, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. He seemed completely absorbed in his reading, a picture of serene contentment. He was Grandpa San, a familiar figure in the neighborhood, known for his quiet wisdom and the gentle smile that always seemed to play on his lips. His presence was unassuming, yet it held a certain gravity, a peaceful aura that seemed to calm the very air around him. A heavy sigh escaped Ailey's lips, loud enough to break the tranquil silence. Grandpa San looked up from his book. His eyes, though old, were clear and perceptive. He didn't speak, but his gaze was an open invitation. The dam of her emotions finally broke, and Ailey found herself pouring out her story, the words tumbling out in a torrent of frustration and hopelessness. She spoke of her dream, the countless hours of practice, the unwavering dedication, and the devastating failure that had rendered it all meaningless. "I gave it everything," she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears. "And it wasn't enough. Maybe I'm just not meant for this. Maybe it's time to let it go." Grandpa San listened patiently, his expression one of deep empathy. When she had finished, he didn't offer platitudes or hollow reassurance. Instead, he closed his book, marking his page with a slender finger, and turned to her. His voice, when he spoke, was soft but carried a profound strength. "Failure is not the end, but the beginning of a new lesson." A sighed gently. He paused, letting the words sink in. "The path to success is always paved with obstacles. It is the river that carves the canyon, not with its force, but with its persistence." His words were simple, yet they struck a chord deep within Ailey's soul. They were not a lecture or a scolding, but a timeless truth, delivered with the quiet authority of someone who had lived it. She looked at Grandpa San, truly seeing the resilience etched into his features, the wisdom that shone from his eyes. He had not dismissed her pain, but had given it a new context. Her failure was not a final judgment on her worth or her abilities. It was a step, a difficult and painful one, but a step nonetheless. "Today's hard. Tomorrow will be harder. But the day after tomorrow, there will be light," he continued, his gaze drifting towards the horizon where the sun was beginning its slow descent. The phrase echoed in her mind, a beacon of hope in the darkness that had enveloped her. It was a promise that this pain was temporary, that the struggle itself was part of the journey toward the light. A shift occurred within her, a subtle but powerful change in perspective. The crushing weight of her defeat began to lift, replaced by a glimmer of understanding. It wasn't the end. It was a lesson. Her failure was not a wall, but a guidepost, pointing her toward a new direction, a new approach. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a newfound resolve settled over Ailey. The conversation with Grandpa San had been a turning point, a quiet meeting under an old tree that had fundamentally altered her outlook. She saw her journey not as a single, all-or-nothing competition, but as a long and winding road. This failure was just one of the many obstacles Grandpa San had spoken of. She now understood that it was not the absence of failure that defined success, but the courage to rise after every fall. The despair that had clouded her vision was beginning to dissipate, revealing a path forward she hadn't been able to see before. She realized that her dream was not broken, only her perspective had been. The fire within her, which she thought had been extinguished, was rekindled by the gentle breath of his encouraging words. She saw her failure not as a source of shame, but as a source of strength, a lesson paid for with tears and effort, making it all the more valuable. With a heart that felt lighter than it had in days, Ailey rose to her feet. She turned to Grandpa San and gave him a smile, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear and steady. He simply nodded, a warm smile returning the gesture, before reopening his old book. As Ailey walked away from the river, the twilight casting long shadows behind her, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would not abandon her dream. She would start again, not from the beginning, but from experience. She would take the lessons from her failure and use them to build a stronger foundation. She now knew that strength wasn't about never falling, but about getting up every single time. One kind, inspiring word, spoken at the right moment, had been the light she desperately needed to find her way out of the darkness and take the next crucial step on her path. The journey would be long and arduous, but she was ready to face it, one step at a time, with renewed energy and a heart full of hope. Thanks you for watching my channel. Please subscribe,